a few of you have talked a little bit about what you guys are working on. I think maybe first question to start off would be maybe you guys could talk a little bit more about that, and then also talk about how you guys are leveraging verifiable compute and zero knowledge proofs, and how that accelerates and helps you guys in your mission.
Sure, I'll just start by how we're using Boundless. So the core piece of the EigenLayer protocol, in order for it to actually function, is a slashing mechanism that we have as part of the core protocol. And in order for slashing to occur, we need to basically calculate all of the stake across all of the different ADSs, which are services built on EigenLayer, and all of the operators that are kind of essentially holding that stake. And this is very dynamic. It changes. People stake and they unstake. We have operators that come in and out. And if you can do the math, you could think like, let's say 50 to 100 ADSs on EigenLayer with up to a couple of hundred operators with stakers, across all of that. It's a lot of computation. So in order to kind of enable a slashing, we actually have to have that information on chain. And obviously to kind of calculate all that on chain would be insanely expensive. So we use Boundless in a way that we kind of calculate all of the different ABSs, all of their operators, and all of the stake across all of those operators. We put them into a ZK proof, store that on chain, and it kind of happens, every so often. I don't know the exact, interval, but maybe a few seconds to a few minutes, depending on, what's happening in the network. And yeah, it's kind of enabled us to enable slashing in a very, very cost-efficient way. And it's kind of very important for our protocol. And I'll talk more about EigenCloud and EigenLayer maybe later, but I'll go ahead and pass it on now.
So for us, verifiable compute is kind of at the heart of what, everything that we do. But who here loves Dogecoin? Got any Dogecoin fans? We all like Dogecoin, right? Who here likes Solana? Probably a lot of people too. Anyone? We got some, right? Well, we wanted to verify Dogecoin's full consensus, basically put an entire Doge node on Solana. So you could verify the whole blockchain state on Solana. And frankly, Solana is a great platform. We love it.
Carter, why do you want to do that?
Well, because we want to enable DeFi on Dogecoin, right? We want to enable yield. We want to enable new applications. We want to expand the proof of work ecosystem over to the utility ecosystem, which has been Solana this past cycle. Because the users have lived on Solana and the miners have lived on proof of work blockchains. So we want to make those two groups be able to play together, right? And frankly, a lot of the liquid capital in blockchain is in the pockets of miners, right? So it's important that we integrate them with the rest of the users. But, frankly, we wanted to bring these two great ecosystems together, and with the power of zero knowledge proofs, we're able to make that work. Whereas if you try to, similar to you guys, frankly, just the computational power required to verify even a single script hash is more than you can do than like a Solana program can do in a single transaction. In fact, a single round of script isn't even possible to do in a Solana program. So, thanks to our friends over at Boundless, we're going to be proving Dogecoin and Bitcoin on Solana, which is going to enable all of the trustless bridges from Solana to Sai as well. So we're very excited about that. And yeah, ZK proofs are a great way not only to scale the impact and positive benefits of blockchain to new use cases and more users. It's also a way to bring the different communities together and is the foundation of any trustless bridge that's worth its weight. So,
not to leech off Carter's explanation, but Wormhole is also part of that build. So that's sort of how we use verifiable compute. On the ZK proof side, obviously security is very, very important to Wormhole. Past incidents have sort of dictated that that's something that we are very, very serious about. As a result of that, we built our proof of authority network, the Wormhole Guardians. As to say, these are 19 of the best validator companies that are essentially making everything happen on Wormhole. I'll talk about this, in more detail in the next question, but essentially Wormhole and Boundless were enabling ZKPs in that architecture to add another layer of security to Wormhole's existing infrastructure.
So we have built Ronin, which is a blockchain specifically built for games and gamified applications. And we built it with all the lessons we learned while building Axie, right? We were originally CryptoKitty players, so we knew from day one that scalability would be really important for us. But when we first started building Ronin, layer 2 solutions were very primitive, right? Optimism wasn't live, Arbitrum wasn't live. We actually tried building on something called Loom Network, which ended up folding. And so we built Ronin as an EVM sidechain. But we always had this dream of eventually becoming a true L2, becoming formally part of the Ethereum ecosystem again, because that's where we were born, that's where we felt very culturally drawn. And so Boundless, so we recently announced that we're going to be upgrading Ronin into a bona fide L2 powered by the OP Stack. And Boundless is basically helping facilitate this upgrade, where Boundless, I believe, is the only ZKP that's live in production on the superchain. And for us, right, like we want to focus on what we do best, which is building amazing experiences for our users, investing in content, right? That's where we defined ourselves, right? Was Axie, right? We knew how to build a game, blockchain application that could actually onboard millions of people. And Boundless is basically helping, right, along with the OP stack, basically helping facilitate this transition where we don't have to worry about the infrastructure side. We don't have to worry about the security. We can focus on our strengths.
I guess, Rachit, this question is directed at you. I guess you were talking about how, Wormhole initially began with this proof of authority network, and you guys kind of integrated Boundless to level up the security. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So Wormhole has, we have many products. One of those products is called NTT, Native Token Transfers. Essentially, if you have a token on any chain, you can integrate this standard and you can make that token go to other chains that you want to. Essentially, the Guardian network, the 19 Guardians that I talked about, were the ones that sort of make this possible. Now we've integrated Boundless, and you can essentially add a layer of security on top of that. So the Guardians are doing what they're doing, and you can have this sort of ZKP verification as well on top of that. So that's what we're doing right now, along with the stuff that Carter and the side team are doing with Boundless as well. Those are sort of the two products that we're focused on. In terms of what the future looks like for Wormhole and zero knowledge proofs, as we roll out NTT and the integration with Boundless, the expectation or, the vision is to integrate it into other stacks as well. And, as we grow steady and slowly, hopefully the general messaging protocol that we have as well will be integrated with Boundless and ZKPs.
So I think this is maybe a good segue to talk about, it sounds like, you guys are all leveraging verifiable compute and zero knowledge proofs in different ways. A few of you guys are broadly using it to facilitate better interoperability and also security. And I guess with Eigen, it's powering slashing in the core protocol. I guess as you guys were considering, there's so many verifiable compute providers out there. There's other solutions, you can build it yourself. What drew you guys to Boundless? Why did you guys decide to work with Boundless?
So I can't answer that question because this was more of like a decision from the core protocol team. But from my understanding, they looked at all the options that were out there and they chose like the best product that was there. So yeah.
So I've been a Risk Zero fan for years. I actually created the first Telegram group, like t.me/Risk Zero, because I was a fan building what eventually became Psi Protocol. So I love Risk Zero. It's like way back in the days, years ago, when proof recursion, where you verify several zero knowledge proofs in a single zero knowledge proof, that was a very almost impossible thing to do. And I remember just in those early days that it was this was clearly the first technology that was going to be able to make it fast enough where we could build what we wanted to build at Psi. Eventually, we built our own proof system and everything, but so just, having that core memory and knowing the incredible innovative roots of Risk Zero certainly was a big motivating factor. And the other factor is that the actual task that we're using for Boundless is proving that when you hash a certain Dogecoin block header, you get a certain script hash output. And probably a lot of folks aren't familiar with script hashes, but essentially, like, there was this time when ASICs came out for Bitcoin mining, and the guys that were mining Bitcoin at home, they couldn't mine their Bitcoins anymore. So you wanted to design new blockchains that people could still mine with their computer, right? So it doesn't like kind of crowd out the normal miners. And so their idea was, let's make a hash function that you need a whole lot of memory to use and need all these very difficult computation steps that are difficult to implement inside of an ASIC. And unfortunately, what made it difficult to make a Dogecoin ASIC or a Litecoin ASIC is also made it very difficult to verify that hash in a Solana program. And you need a lot of like very sparse memory reads, which for those that aren't familiar with zero-knowledge proofs is actually kind of a difficult thing to do with zero-knowledge proofs, but RISC-Zero's ZKVM does them extremely efficiently, and I think most efficiently based on our tests. And since we need a whole lot of memory and a whole lot of compute, yeah, I guess it was a pretty easy decision for us to pick RISC-Zero.
Awesome. Thanks, Carter. That's a tough act to follow. Well, similar to Nader, I don't have a technical answer to this question. You know, I'm on the non-technical side of the Wormhole Foundation. But one thing that I do hear a lot from our core team that works on the product is the Boundless and Risk-Zero team were just relentless in working with our teams to actually build something that we wanted to use. That was like the ZK sort of thing that we wanted to integrate into NTT was something that we had talked about for months and years, and we wanted to do, but as soon as it became a proposal that was technically feasible, the Boundless team was happy to work with our team. You know, it's not a simple build. These things take more than 6-7 months. For another team to actually put in the effort to actually build that with us was immense. Another thing that I think the Boundless team doesn't get enough credit for is the marketing that they're doing. You know, Rekha and Kashvi doing an awesome job. I think they've made ZK cool again, which is awesome. You know, like G-Berry. I've definitely started to eat blueberry, G-Berry. So yeah, I think like from a non-technical point of view, you want to work with a team that's happy to work with you through that sort of long build, and then they have the marketing engine as well to amplify whatever you're building, along with whatever we have on the Wormhole side.
For us, so we just recently had this whole race, public kind of proposal period to determine which L2 provider Ronin would be using to come back home to Ethereum. And my understanding is that when we looked at the options, so eventually, right, like we chose the OP stack, and for us, we looked at the options, and the only thing that's really live in production for the superchain is Boundless. So that's basically, you know, the key differentiator for us. You always, like for us, we always have an appreciation for teams that have a bias towards shipping and actually being concrete and real and tangible. And for us, you know, that was huge.
I think next, let's talk a little bit more about how you guys have each shared a little bit more about your plans for what you guys are building in the near future. I think, you know, let's talk a bit more about that. How, you know, what are your immediate, what are your immediate goals for the next couple of years for, you know, EigenCloud, Zai, Wormhole, and you know, Axie and Ronin?
Okay, so I explained a little bit about how RISC-Zero Boundless kind of helps the EigenLayer protocol function at its core level, but the protocol itself is kind of just the foundation for what we're building now at EigenCloud. So the original product offering that we had at EigenLayer was EigenLayer and EigenDA. EigenDA was essentially an AVS that we built that is essentially kind of a managed service. A lot of times people think of it as kind of L2 data availability, but people are using it for all sorts of things. But what we're now moving towards is more of kind of like a larger product offering that we're kind of calling EigenCloud. So in addition to EigenDA, we've already announced EigenCompute, and we also have another AI product that will be launching on September 30th, which is next week, which will be like the EigenCloud alpha, a launch for everything that we're doing. So we have kind of the core protocol. You could kind of think of that as something like data centers on AWS. And then we have kind of these services that are built on top of EigenLayer that are going to be EigenCloud. So EigenCompute could be thought of something like AWS Lambda or maybe even Cloudflare Workers or something like that. And then we have, again, a couple of new things that will be coming out on September 30th. But the general idea is to just make it much easier for developers to build I would say, products in crypto. And we do have kind of a product offering that is in the similar space, offering verifiable compute. That is EigenCompute. It's a lot different though than Boundless. And I think there's like a nice spectrum of different ways that you can kind of build verifiable compute, right? You have like ZK, which is the most secure, but maybe it's not the most programmable. And then on the other hand, you have something like a TEE, which is very programmable, less secure. EigenLayer might be something in the middle of that where you have crypto economic security. So there's going to be a lot of different things that you can build. And I don't think you're going to say like, this is the best option, like period, because it just depends on what you're building and what you're using. And all of these things are really, really great. And the more, the better. So.
Carter, before you answer, like Nader, do you want to talk a bit more about the AI product that you guys are building?
Probably not, because it hasn't been fully announced yet. So, but no, I mean,
Mr. Journalist.
It's actually, we actually just announced a big partnership with Google Cloud a few days ago, and it made a lot of news and headlines, and people have been asking us, and we kind of talked a little bit about it there. So it's not completely private, but we haven't kind of talked about exactly what it is yet. So on September 30th, that will come out. But we're doing a lot of stuff like that. So Google Cloud essentially has this A2A protocol, which is a communication layer for AI agents. Coinbase has X402, which is kind of a payment layer. But A2A is really, really great because you don't really need to know the API interface to communicate with other agents. And if you think of like other similar standards, you have MCP, which is a model context protocol, which is a way for agents to share context and tool calls. So combining A2A MCP with AP2, which is the protocol that they just announced that we're kind of helping them out with, you have context, tool calling, communication, and payments. And then with what we're doing, you can now also add verifiability as well. So we're working very closely with Google. We have a lot more stuff coming out there. If you want to see what we've already announced, it's on the Eigen Cloud Twitter and my Twitter as well. So just keep up on September 30th.
Well, I'm going to be following the news. But yeah, so at Sai, we're really focused on scaling the Bitcoin values and security of Bitcoin to the rest of the internet. Because we've seen this trend where the internet is becoming a more and more centralized place where we've gone from let's say the early noughts where there's tons of websites all hosted and owned by different people to like a few big tech monopolies kind of owning different segments of the internet. So you can imagine like a lot of your social interactions, or perhaps all of them, will be dominated by like Telegram, Meta, Instagram, Facebook, and then perhaps X. And what we want to do is we want to make the entire internet verifiable. And what that's going to require is that we bring on apps which can go viral for the first time at full zero knowledge, verifiable scale. And I know Boundless is also working on scaling up CK compute. And frankly, I think the more we sort of invest into recursive proving and scaling the impact of blockchain, the better it's going to be for our bags as well. Because while speculation is great, at the end of the day, we need to deliver for humanity. And your positive impact of any product is the average positive impact per user multiplied by the number of users. So even if you have a great product, if you can't scale it up to go viral, to build network effects, you're also not really making a great impact on humanity. So we want to bring the values of Bitcoin to everyone and hopefully avoid some weird dystopian future where the big tech companies control our lives. So we're fighting that good fight.
My inner legal sense was just hoping you don't drop a price target there.
Not financial advice. Not financial advice, right?
In terms of what's next for Wormhole, in the context of this conversation, I think what we're building with Sai and Boundless is probably the most exciting, where we have Doge on Solana and we create all the utility for Dogecoin on different chains, and then we expand to other UTXO chains. It's funny, we make this joke internally. I've been tweeting out big week Wormhole every week for the past 3 weeks because we've just been shipping. There's a lot that's coming in the next 3 weeks that I can't really talk about. But what I do want to talk about is, our team's been relentless in Q3. We'd recently announced, our token revamp. We're calling it W 2.0. We announced the Wormhole Reserve. Our ecosystem partners, Pit, they cracked a huge deal where the US economy data is going to be on chain, and that's powered by Wormhole. We did a huge facelift for Portal. It is now called Wormhole Portal. Portalbridge.com. Try to transfer assets, and it's a way much better experience now. If you've used the product 2 years ago, we have a lot of chain integrations coming on. We have a lot more institutional partners coming on. We have a lot more stablecoins, DeFi integrations coming on. So yeah, that was Q3. Q3 is going to be bigger. I just can't talk about it right now.
So with Axie and Ronin, we've been on this quest since 2018 to bring economic freedom to every user of the internet, starting with gamers, right? And we know that games have always been a great way to introduce people to crypto or to new technologies. Why? Well, we're in Korea. I'm actually half Korean. My mom is Korean. And the first thing that I ever did on the internet was play StarCraft, right? So BattleNet actually introduced us to the internet. OpenAI, right? Like the first thing that they ever built was a Dota team, right? A Dota model, right? That could basically play Dota. Angry Birds, right? Taught us how to use a touch screen. So it's always been our thesis that if we could make crypto fun and easy to use, then we could help a lot of people. And we've shown that we're on the right track, right? During COVID, we were able to onboard millions of people to crypto in the places of the world that need it the most. We were able to help sustain families in places like the Philippines and Argentina, Brazil during the pandemic. And so we want to stay true to that mission. For us, we're here talking about how we're upgrading the infrastructure and becoming an L2, really kind of also facilitated by Boundless. That allows us to focus on our core mission, which is onboarding users, onboarding gamers, showing people that crypto is fun. Crypto is about more than money. Right? I think these days, right, when people think about crypto, they think about meme coins, they think about trading, they think about stable coins. The stable coins are pretty, even for me, right, pretty boring. And I do think that, right, when crypto is about culture, it's about having fun, it's about collecting things, it's about playing games, about meeting other people from all walks of life, all cultures, all across the world. That's, to me, what made crypto interesting. I found out about Bitcoin in 2010, but I was never interested in it. I was never interested in crypto when it was just about making money. There are a lot of easy ways to make money. There are actually a lot of less stressful ways to make money than being in crypto. And so for me, right, it's about the connections, the lessons, the experiences, and we want to facilitate that.
Jeff, and maybe a follow-up question for you, right? Given, I think, on this panel, we have 3 people building infrastructure, and Ronin and Axie, you guys are kind of doing both. But I guess in terms of the mission that you guys are trying to ultimately fulfill, helping bring economic freedom around, to everyone around the world through gaming, it sounds like working with Boundless has helped you guys scale to reach more people, be able to, basically have more people playing Axie at the same time. I guess, as you guys look forward, what else are some big blockers for you guys to really fulfill your mission?
Right. Recently, we've been very interested in reputation systems. And why are we interested in reputation systems? Because when you think about incentives for driving adoption of your project in crypto, a lot of it is around distributing tokens, right? And a lot of the progress that's happened in crypto gaming over the last 4 years since last cycle has been around smarter distribution of incentives, right? Rewarding the right people for doing the right things. And so, focused on, solving scalable economic systems for crypto gaming, for gamified applications. That's an example, right, of something that takes up our mind share, and it's something that we want to spend more of our time on rather than, right, thinking about security and worrying that, right, there's going to be some kind of, right, vulnerability. So yeah, reputation systems, app tokens. Like, have you guys heard of app tokens? Like, that's another thing that we're super interested in. Is basically programmable tokens, where you could actually theoretically release this. Just how they made ERC 721X, which basically allowed you to block blur, right? And this basically helped enforce creator royalties for NFTs. They're also working on these tokens called app tokens, which allow you to do things like ban or blacklist Binance or Coinbase for a certain token, right? Or you could basically create tokens that vest to certain users based on their on-chain reputations. So this is like a lot of the stuff that we're really interested in, because we believe that we've solved scalability, right? We solved scalability in 2021. We got super viral. The thing that prevented us from, we hit 3 million DAU. What prevented us from going to 30 million DAU, right, was, a lot of these questions around how do you build like a scalable, well-oiled game economy, right?
And now turning to the other three, Nader, Carter, and Rachit, I guess as builders of infrastructure, both using verifiable compute or building a form of verifiable compute, I guess what do you guys see as things that are missing that I guess for the two of you, and interoperability, where might that go? How might people leverage it in ways that they're not leveraging it today that you think would be really cool? Or maybe there are other applications that could leverage verifiable compute in ways that are not currently being leveraged.
So Shiv was talking about developer experience, and I still kind of feel that that's the core to a lot of crypto adoption, is that it's just not that easy to build really, really great applications. And a lot of it is obviously due to kind of how crypto just works, but also a lot of it also I think has to do with developer experience. And if you kind of look at the evolution of AI, AI has been around for a long time, but developers didn't really just go crazy leveraging it until natural language became the interface. So I think like we're starting to kind of see, crypto primitives evolve to be better and better. And I think we're starting to see some interesting things happen, I think, believe it or not, having to do with AI and has some of these different protocols, like I just mentioned earlier, AP2, where you kind of are able to interact with these different services, these APIs with natural language. And if you kind of combine verifiable compute with that, then you can now really remove a lot of some of those limitations theoretically. And the way that might look would be, we built a demo to kind of show how to build an agent that talks to EigenDA, for example. Now, if you wanted to integrate with EigenDA in the past, you had to go to our documentation. You had to kind of like read and understand how it works. You had to probably download some SDK and integrate all of that. And then you had to kind of have everything all set up perfectly. But with the AP2 integration, you only have to just say in natural language what you want, and everything just works as long as you have your wallet set up. But the thing is, once you have your wallet set up, it works for every other protocol as well. So now you can just say, store this image on EigenDA or save this text. It doesn't even matter what you say. It understands what you're saying and it'll automatically store that. So anyway, that's just one small example, but I think what we're 100% focused on with these new primitives that we're launching is also developer experience. So EigenCompute is a 100x improvement on developer experience from EigenLayer, offering a similar product. And we're shipping other things. And I think like a lot of other people that I've talked to kind of in the infrastructure space also care a lot about developer experience. So I think that's kind of, in my opinion, one of the biggest limitations. Yeah.
So for us, we kind of have a different perspective, which is we think like what's really missing is the user experience. And there's two main reasons why the user experience on crypto isn't like other websites. Because again, with crypto products, we're a website, right? We're competing with other websites. We're a fairer, more trustless version, but we're competing with others. And the reasons are, one, when you click the button, you have to pay, which sucks. No one likes gas fees, right? And then the other thing is it's slow. You have to wait. It goes, you see the circle, it's going round and round. We've kind of moved on from 1990, right, for other websites where we don't have that spinning circle. And frankly, zero knowledge proofs at this point in time are getting getting to a point where we no longer really will have to pay. I know we were talking about earlier, I believe someone mentioned like fees are kind of going to zero for zero knowledge proofs, which is super exciting, which means that your transactions really aren't going to have to cost anything. And the reason why transactions currently cost money is because there's a scarcity of block space, right? In Ethereum, every time you send a transaction, every Ethereum node around the world needs to check it, needs to run it, every full node. So, you have to charge people for transactions because all these computers are spending electricity computing your transaction. But with zero knowledge proofs enabled by systems like Boundless and Psi, we can aggregate those proofs into one proof so that like each computation only has to be run one time. And we know that this business model of running a computation a single time and providing a service to a user for free is a workable business model because that's the business model of the entire internet. It's scaled up to billions of users. And now we are at the cusp of this technology for building these super really great user experiences. We like to call it Web 2 parity user experiences on chain that are fully trustless and decentralized. You can do that now with the ZK tech that was pioneered by people like RISC-0. And that time is I would say in a few months or something, we're kind of reaching this precipice of the fee market just going to zero very soon. And I would say this is going to happen, but for us to get to okay, Web3 is actually gonna happen and the web is gonna become a more decentralized and trustless place, we also need to build these new applications on top of this new hyper-scalable trustless system, something like Boundless, like a Psi, get our first viral applications, which is, again, one of the reasons why we love the Dogecoin community so much, because Doge is truly the viral crypto meme that has sort of broken into the mainstream, right? We even had the Department of Government Efficiency, a .gov website with a favicon, or the little website icon, that was literally the Dogecoin logo. So it's time to go mainstream. I think the things that we're missing are going to be fixed in the next few months by people like Boundless, like ourselves. And the sky's the limit there. So again, nothing financial advice, but we like berries. Berries, not financial advice. Psi, Wormhole 2.0. It's just, I'm looking at the ceiling.
Again, very tough act to follow, Carter. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry.
I'll talk a little bit about the future of interoperability in intersection with zero knowledge proofs. If you think about what sort of powers interoperability, there's obviously the assets you power, the chains you power, but I would say that's more of a BD lens. If you look at what the core technology is doing, users want it to be cheaper, faster, and more secure, right? I talked about the security aspect earlier in terms of the Guardians and how ZKPs add another layer to it. In terms of it being cheaper, we are exploring a lot of ways that Guardians can reuse proofs so that they don't have to go through the entire circle. That would make it cheaper, and then that would also make it faster, essentially. So that's sort of how, that could be one possibility in terms of where interoperability is positioned.
I think maybe I'll just talk a bit about interop. So my understanding, right, is that a lot of this is at the wallet level, and where I think the Ethereum Foundation, Ethereum core team has made a lot of progress with interop, but it's actually up to the wallet providers. I think people like MetaMask to actually integrate and create a good enough user experience where transacting on any chain within the Ethereum ecosystem feels natural and seamless. And one of the good things about Ronin, right, is that we kind of feel like we have a responsibility to our users. So we built our own wallet, right, for interacting with the Ronin chain, and we've created a very seamless experience for buying NFTs on Ronin from any chain very seamlessly, and kind of vice versa. And so I think unified liquidity across the Ethereum ecosystem, that's going to be a major thing. That that's one of the reasons that we wanted to come home to the Ethereum ecosystem. And I think in the future you'll also start to see even more complex, perhaps, architectures where every game might have their own, operate as their own L3, right? And then you basically want to have a seamless access to liquidity that's either on an L1 or an L2 from these L3s. And another thing that we're seeing a lot is, right, we're talking about users no longer having to pay gas fees. One meta that we're starting to see develop is developers on Ronin paying gas fees for their users, right? So I think like that's generally what we'll start to see more of in the future, where it's just like with cloud providers, right? The developers pay on behalf of their users, and the users, right, don't necessarily need to even know that they're interacting on chain. And that's something that, right, we've always dreamed of, and that's something that's live. There's a game called Angry Dynamites, which is like a clicker game where a lot of the actions in this mobile app are on chain. But the user, right, may not even know it. And even like the in-game marketplace is basically, right, just the gamers think that they're interacting with kind of like this in-game marketplace, but it's actually, right, tapped into the Ronin protocol DEX. And then it's like, okay, what are actually the business models for things like L2s going to be? And actually, we foresaw this all the way back to 2021. So for us, it was really important that that Ronin be sustainable, even if there were no gas fees. So what did we do? So we built kind of these enshrined DEXs, an enshrined DEX and an enshrined NFT marketplace on the chain, and made it so that a portion of all NFT volume and a portion of all ERC20 volume on the chain goes into the Ronin treasury. And that's actually what has allowed us to basically accumulate this big trove of tokens. And yesterday we just made an announcement that we're going to be putting those tokens to work to basically buy back 2% of the RON supply, right? So I think, right, like when you talk about removing gas fees from the equation, but chains also have to think about how do they become sustainable in an environment like that. And I do think that things like enshrined DEXs, enshrined NFT marketplaces, where basically a portion of all the volume on a chain is going towards kind of sustainability of the business. I think that's something that we were early to, and I think we'll see more protocols go that way.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Amazing, thank you.